The 5 keys to wealth and happiness. Man is not the creature of circumstances. Circumstances are the creatures of men. Words by Benjamin Disraeli. You now have the resources to take absolute charge of your life. You have the ability to form the internal representations and produce the states that lead to success and power. But having the ability isn't always the same as using it. There are certain experiences that time and again put people in unresourceful states. There are bends in the road, rapids in the river, that snare people time and again. There are experiences that consistently prevent people from being all they can be. In this chapter, I want to give you a map showing where the perils are and what you really need to know to overcome them. I call these the 5 keys to wealth and happiness, or some people call these the 5 keys to wealth and happiness. If you're going to use all the abilities you now have, if you're going to be all you can be, you're going to have to understand these keys. Every person who is successful has to, sooner or later. If you do, if you can handle them consistently, your life will be an indomitable success. Not long ago, I was in Boston after a seminar one night. I took a middle night stroll around Copeland Square. I was talking in the buildings, which range from modern skyscrapers to structures as old as America, when I noticed a man wobbling back and forth coming my way. He looked as though he'd been sleeping in the streets for weeks. He smelled of alcohol and looked as if he hadn't saved for months. I figured he would come up and beg for money. Well, as you think, so you attract. He approached and asked, "Mister, could you loan me a quarter?" First I asked myself if I wanted to reward this behavior. Then I told myself I didn't want him to suffer. Either way, a quarter was not going to make him much difference. So I figured the least I could do was try to teach him a lesson. "A quarter? That's what you want? A quarter?" And he said, "Yes, just a quarter." So I reached in my pocket, pulled out a quarter and said, "Life will pay the price you ask of it." The guy looked stunned and then he staggered away. As I watched him go, I thought about the difference between those who succeed and those who fail. I thought, what's the difference between him and me? Why is my life such a joy that I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, wherever I want, with whomever I want, as much as I want? He's maybe 60 years old and living in the street begging for quarters. Did God come down and say, "Robbins, you've been good. You get to live your dream life"? Isn't not likely. Did someone give me superior resources or advantages? I don't think so. I was once in a state almost as bad as his, although I didn't drink as much alcohol or sleep in the street. I think part of the difference is the answer I gave him, that life will pay you whatever you ask of it. You ask for a quarter and that's what you'll get. Ask for resounding joy and success, you'll get that too. Everything I've studied convinces me that if you learn to manage your states and manage your behaviors, you can change anything. You can learn what to ask of life, and you can be sure to get it. Over the following months, I met more street people and asked them about their lives and how they got there. I began to find we had similar challenges in common. The difference was how we handled them. There's a Greek proverb that goes like this: "Whatever kind of word thou speakest, the like shalt thou bear." Now let me share with you 5 things to use as road signs to success. There's nothing profound or abstruse about them, but they're absolutely crucial. If you master them, there's no limit to what you can do. If you don't use them, you've already placed the limits on how high you can go. Affirmation and positive thinking are a start, but they're not the full answer. Affirmation without discipline is the beginning of delusion. Affirmation with discipline creates miracles. Here's the first key to the creation of wealth and happiness. You must learn how to handle frustration. Number one, let me repeat it. You must learn how to handle frustration. If you want to become all you can become, do all you can do, hear all you can hear, see all you can see, you've got to learn how to handle frustration. Wow. Frustration can kill dreams. It happens all the time. Frustration can change a positive attitude into a negative one, and an empowering state into a crippling one. The worst thing a negative attitude does is wipe out self-discipline. And when the discipline is gone, the results you desire are also gone. So, to ensure long-term success, you must learn how to discipline your frustration. Let me tell you something. The key to success is massive frustration. Look at almost any great success, and you'll find there's been massive frustration along the way. Anybody who tells you otherwise doesn't know anything about achieving. There are two kinds of people: those who've handled frustration and those who wish they had. There is a little company called Federal Express. A guy named Fred Smith started a company, and he built a multi-million-dollar business out of moles of frustration. When he started the company, after financing it with every dime he had, he hoped to deliver approximately 100 packages. Instead, he delivered 16, 5 of which the business sent to the homes of one of its employees. Things got worse from there. Periodically, employees cashed their payroll checks at convenience stores because funds weren't available to cover the checks. Many times their planes were in the process of being repossessed, and sometimes they had to bring in a certain amount in sales during a day to keep operating. Federal Express is now a billion-dollar company. The only reason it's still there is that Fred Smith was able to handle frustration upon frustration. People get paid very well to handle frustration. If you're broke, it's probably because you're not handling very much frustration. You say, "Well, I'm broke and that's why I'm frustrated." You've got it all backward. If you handled more frustration, you'd be rich. A major difference between people who are financially secure and people who are not is how they handle frustration. I'm not callous enough to suggest that poverty doesn't have huge frustrations. I'm saying the way not to be poor is to take on more and more frustration until you succeed. People say, "Well, people with money don't have any problems. If they take on enough, they probably have more problems. They just know how to deal with them, to come up with new strategies, new alternatives." Remember, being rich is not just a matter of having money. A superb relationship provides problems and challenges. If you don't want problems, you shouldn't have a relationship at all. There's great frustration on the road to any great success, in a business, in a relationship, in a life. The greatest gift that optimum performance technologies provide us is that they teach us how to handle frustration in an effective way. You can take things that used to make you frustrated and program them so they make you excited. Tools like NLP are not just positive thinking. The problem with positive thinking is that you have to think about it, and by that time it's often too late to do what you want to do. What NLP offers is a way to turn stress into opportunity. You already know how to take images that once depressed you and make them wither and disappear, or change them to the images that bring you ecstasy. It's not hard to do. You already know how. Here's a 2-step formula for handling stress. Step number 1, don't sweat the small stuff. Step number 2, remember, it is small stuff. All successful people learn that success is buried on the other side of frustration. Unfortunately, some people don't get to the other side. People who fail to achieve their goals usually get stopped by frustration. They allow frustration to keep them from taking the necessary actions that would support them in achieving their desires. You get through this roadblock by plowing through frustration, taking each setback as feedback you can learn from and pushing ahead. I doubt you'll find many successful people who have not experienced this. Here's the second key: you must learn how to handle rejection. Wow. The second key: you must learn how to handle rejection. Now, when I repeat that in a seminar, I can feel the psychology in the room change. Is there anything in the human language with more sting than the tiny word no? If you're in sales, what's the difference between making $100,000 and making $25,000? The main difference is learning how to handle rejection so that this fear no longer stops you from taking action. The best salesmen are those who are rejected the most. They're the ones who can take any no and use it as a prod to go on to the next yes. The biggest challenge for people in our culture is that they can't handle the word no. Remember the question I asked earlier? What would you do if you knew you could not fail? Think about it now. If you knew you couldn't fail, would that change your behavior? Would that allow you to do exactly what you want to do? So what's keeping you from doing it? It's the tiny word no. To succeed, you must learn how to cope with rejection. Learn how to strip the rejection of all its power. I once worked with a high jumper. He had been an Olympic athlete but had reached the point where he no longer could jump his head size. I immediately saw what his problem was when I watched him jump. Sure enough, he hit the bar and started going through all sorts of emotional gyrations. He turned its failure into a big event. I called him over and told him that if he wanted to work with me, he would never do that again. He was storing the old thing as failure. He was sending a message to his brain that reinforced the image of failure. So it was there the next time he jumped. Each time he jumped, his brain was more concerned with failing than with being in the resourceful state that brings success. I told him if he hit the bar again, he should tell himself, another distinction, not another failure. He should put himself back into a resourceful state and go for it again. Within 3 jumps, he was performing better than he had in 2 years. It doesn't take a lot to change. The difference between 7 feet and 6 feet 4 inches is only 10%. It's not a big difference in height, but it's a big difference in performance. In the same way, small changes can make a big change in the quality of your life. Ever hear of a guy named Rambo, Sylvester Stallone? Did he just show up at the door of some agent or studio and hear, "Hey, we like your body, we're going to put you in a movie"? Not exactly. Sylvester Stallone became a success because he was able to withstand rejection after rejection, rejection after rejection. When he started out, he was just rejected more than 1,000 times. He went to every agent he could ever find in New York City, and everyone said no. But he kept pushing and kept trying, and finally he made a movie called Rocky. He could hear the word no 1,000 times and then go knock on the next door the 1,001 times. How many no's can you take? How many times have you wanted to go up and talk to someone you found attractive, then decided not to do it because you didn't want to hear the word no? How many of you decided not to try for a job or make a sales call or audition for a part because you didn't want to be rejected? Think about how crazy that is. Think how you're creating limits just because of your fear of that little 2-letter word. The word itself has no power. It can't cut your skin or sap your strength. Its power comes from the way you represent it to yourself. Its power comes from the limits it makes you create. And what do limited thoughts create? Limited lives. So when you learn to run your brain, you can learn to handle rejection. You can even anchor yourself so the word no turns you on. You can take any rejection and turn it into an opportunity. If you're in a telephone sales, you can anchor yourself so that simply reaching for the phone puts you in ecstasy rather than raising the fear of rejection. Remember, success is buried on the other side of rejection. There are no real successes without rejection. The more rejection you get, the better you are. The more you've learned, the closer you are to your outcome. The next time somebody rejects you, you might give him a hug. That'll change his physiology. Turn those into hugs. If you can handle rejection, you learn to get everything you want. Here's the third key to wealth and happiness. You must learn to handle financial pressure. The third key, you must learn to handle financial pressure. The only way not to have financial pressure is not to have any finances. There are many kinds of financial pressure and they've destroyed many people. They can create greed, envy, deceit, or paranoia. They can rob you of your sensitivity or rob you of your friends. Now remember, I said they can, not that they will. Handling financial pressure means knowing how to get and knowing how to give, knowing how to earn and knowing how to save. When I first started to make money, I started to catch hell for it. My friends disowned me. They said, "You're into money. What's your problem?" I said, "I'm not into money. I just have some." They wouldn't see it that way. People somehow suddenly perceived me as a different person because I had a different financial status. Some were very resentful, so that's one kind of financial pressure. Not having enough money is another kind of financial pressure. You probably feel that pressure every day. Most people do, but whether you have a lot or a little, you deal with financial pressure. Remember that all of our actions in life are guided by our philosophies, our guiding internal representations about how to act. They give us the models of how to behave. George S. Clason provided a great model for learning to handle financial pressure in The Richest Man in Babylon. Have you read it? If so, read it again. If not, run out and get it now. It's a book that can make you totally wealthy, happy, and excited. To me, the most important thing the book teaches is to take 10% of all your earn up front and give it away. That's right. Why? One reason is that you should put back what you take out. Another is that it creates value for you and for others. Most important, it says to the world and to your own subconscious that there is more than enough. And that's a very powerful belief to nurture. If there's more than enough, it means you can have what you want and others can too. And when you hold that thought, you make it come true. When do you start to give the 10% away? When you're rich and famous? No, you should do it when you're starting out, because when you give away becomes like your seed corn. You've got to invest it, not eat it. And the best way to invest it is to give it away so that it produces value for others. You won't have trouble finding the ways. There is need all around us. One of the most valuable things about doing this is how this makes you feel about yourself. When you're the kind of person who tries to find and feel other people's needs, it makes you feel differently about who you are. And from those kinds of feelings or states, you live your life in an attitude of gratitude. I had the good fortune the other day to return to my high school in Glendora, California. I'm doing a program for teachers and I wanted to acknowledge the teachers who have affected my life. When I arrived, I realized that a speech program that taught me how to express myself had been cut for lack of funding and because people didn't think it was important enough. So I funded a program. I gave back a portion of what had been given to me. I didn't do it because I'm a swell guy. I did it because I owe it. And isn't it nice to know that when you owe something, you can pay it back? That's the reason to have money. We all have positive debts. The best reason to have money is to be able to pay them back. When I was a kid, our parents worked extremely hard to take good care of us. For various reasons, we found ourselves in extremely tight financial situations. I remember one Thanksgiving when we had no money. Things were looking dim until someone arrived at the front door with a box full of canned goods and a turkey. The man who delivered it said it was from someone who knew we would not ask for anything and loved us and wanted us to have a great Thanksgiving. I never forgot the day. So every Thanksgiving, I do what someone did for me that day. I go out and buy about a week's worth of food and deliver it to a family in need. I deliver the food as the worker or delivery boy, never as the person actually providing the gift. I always leave a note that says, "This is from someone who cares about you and hopes someday you will take good enough care of yourself that you'll go out and return the favor for someone else in need." It's becoming one of the highlights of my year, seeing people's faces when they know someone cares, making a difference. That's what life is all about. One year, I wanted to give away some turkeys in Harlem, but we didn't have a van or even a car, and everything was closed. My staff said, "Let's forget it this year," and I said, "No, I am going to do it." They asked, "How are you going to do it? You don't even have a van to make deliveries from." I said there were plenty of vans on the street. We just needed to find one that would take us. I started to flag down vans, not a practice I would recommend in New York. Many drivers there think they're on a search and destroy mission, and the fact that it was Thanksgiving didn't change anything. So I went to a spotlight and started knocking on one van's windows, telling people I'd give them $100 if they'd take us to Harlem. When that didn't work too well either, I changed my message a little. I told people I wanted to take an hour and a half of their time to deliver food to needy people in an improvised area of the city. That got us a little closer. I had already decided that I wanted to go in a van that was long enough and big enough to make a larger delivery. Sure enough, this beautiful van, fire mist burgundy, pulled up, and it was an extra long with an extension on the back. I said, "That's it." One of my people ran across the street and caught it at the light locked on the window and offered the driver $100 if he'd drive us to where we wanted to go. The driver said, "Look, you don't have to pay me. I'll be happy to take you." This was the 10th person we'd tried. Then he reached over, picked up his hat and put it on. It said Salvation Army. He said his name was Captain John Rondon, and he wanted to make sure we brought food to people who were really needy. So instead of just delivering food to Harlem, we also went to the South Bronx, which is one of the most blighted landscapes in the country. We drove past the vacant lots and the bombarded out buildings to a grocery in South Bronx. There we bought food and delivered it to the squatters, urban refugees, street people, and families struggling to make a decent life. I don't know how much we changed those people's lives, but according to Captain Rondon, it changed their belief about people caring. No amount of money can buy what you get when you give of yourself. No amount of financial planning could do more for you than if you give 10% away. It teaches you what money can do, and it teaches you what money cannot do. And those are two of the most valuable lessons that you can learn. I used to think the best way to help other people was to be one of them. I found out that the opposite may be true. The best way to help poor people is to be a model of other possibilities, to let them know there is another set of choices available, and to assist them in developing the resources to become self-sufficient. After you give away 10% of your income, take another 10% to reduce your debts and a third 10% to build up capital to invest. You need to live on 70% of what you have. We live in a capitalistic society in which most human beings are not capitalist. As a result, they don't have the lifestyle they desire. They live in a capitalistic society surrounded by opportunity and not take advantage of the very system our forefathers fought to create. Learn to take your money and use it as capital. If you are spending it, you'll never build up any capital. You'll never have the resources you need. It's been said that in California, the average income is around $25,000 a year. The average outgo is $30,000. The difference is called financial pressure. You don't want to join that crowd. The bottom line is that money is like everything else. You can make it work for you, or you can let it work against you. You should be able to deal with money as with anything else in your mind. With the same purpose and elegance, learn to earn, to save, and to give. If you can do that, you'll learn to handle the financial pressure, and the money will never again be a stimulus to putting you in a negative state that causes you to be unhappy or treat others around you in a less than resourceful way. When you master the first three keys, you will be able to experience your life as hugely successful. If you can handle frustration, rejection, and financial pressure, there's no limit to what you can do. Ever see Tina Turner perform? She is someone who had handled massive amounts of all three. After becoming a star, she lost her marriage, lost her money, and spent 8 years in a show business purgatory of hotel lounges and cheap clubs. She couldn't get people to return her phone calls, much less offer her a recording contract, but she kept plugging, kept turning out the nose, kept working to pay off debts and put her financial house in order. Finally, she came all the way back to the top of the entertainment world. So you can do anything. And that's where number 4 butts in. You must learn how to handle complacency. You've seen people in your life, or celebrities or athletes, which reach a level of success and then stop. They start to get comfortable and they lose what got them there in the first place. Tao Te King once said, "That which is achieved the most still has the whole if its future yet to be achieved." Comfort can be one of the most disastrous emotions a body could have. What happens when a person gets too comfortable? He stops growing, stops working, stops creating added value. You don't want to get too comfortable. If you feel really comfortable, chances are you've stopped growing. What did Bob Dylan say? "He who's not busy being born is busy dying. You either climbing or you're sliding." Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's, was once asked if he were to give one piece of advice to someone to guarantee a lifelong success, what would it be? He said to simply remember this: when you green, you grow. When you ripen, you rot. As long as you remain green, you grow. You can take any experience and make it an opportunity for growth, or you can take it and make it an invitation to decay. You can see retirement as the beginning of a richer life, or you can see it as the end of your working life. You can see success as a springboard to greater things, or you can see it as a resting place. And if it's a resting place, chances are you won't keep it for a long time. One kind of complacency comes from comparison. I used to think I was doing well because I was doing well compared with people I knew. That's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Maybe it just makes your friends aren't doing very well. Learn to judge yourself by your goals instead of by what your peers seem to be doing. Why? Because you can always find people to justify what you're doing. Didn't you do that as a kid? Didn't you say, "Johnny did this, why can't I?" Your mother probably said, "Well, I don't care what Johnny does," and she was right. You shouldn't care what Johnny or Mary or the Jones do. Care about what you're capable of. Care about what you create and what you can do for yourself. Work from a set of dynamic, evolving, enabling goals that will help you to do what you want and not what someone else has done. There will always be someone who is more than you. There will always be someone who is less. None of that matters. You need to judge yourself by your goals and nothing else. As the words of Benjamin Disraeli once said, "Little things affect little minds." Here's another way to avoid complacency. Stay away from coffee pot seminars. You know what I'm talking about? The sessions where everyone else's work habits, sex life, financial status, and everything else become fair game. Coffee pot seminars are like suicide. They poison your brain by getting you to focus your attention on what other people are doing in their private lives instead of what you can be doing to enhance your experience of life. It's easy to get caught up in the seminars, but just remember that people who do are merely trying to distract themselves from the boredom created by their inability to produce the results they desire in their own life. There's a phrase that Rolling Thunder, the Indian wise men, used often, and that was speak with your good purpose only. Remember, what we put out comes back to us. So my challenge to you is to stay away from the garbage of life. Don't major in minor things. I repeat, don't major in minor things. If you want to be complacent and mediocre, spend your time gossiping about who is sleeping with whom. If you want to make a difference, make sure you challenge yourself, test yourself, make your life special. Here's the last key. Always give more than you expect to receive. This may be the most important key of all because it virtually guarantees true happiness. I remember driving home from a meeting one night, almost asleep. The speed bumps kept jolting me into consciousness. And in this half-awake state, I was trying to figure out what gave life meaning. All of a sudden, a little voice in my head said, the secret to living is giving. If you want to make your life work, you have to start with how to give. Most people start their life giving about nothing, but how to receive. Receiving is not a problem. Receiving is like the ocean. But you've got to make sure you are giving so you can start the process in motion. The problem in life is people want things first. A couple will come to me and the man will say his wife doesn't treat him well, and the women will say that because he's not very affectionate. So they each waiting for the other to make the first move, provide the first proof. What kind of a relationship is that? How long is it going to last? The key to any relationship is that you have to first give and then keep giving. Don't stop and wait to give, to receive. When you start keeping score, the game's over. You're standing there saying, I gave, now it's their turn, and the game is over. She's gone. You can take your score to the next spinning planet because the scoreboard doesn't work that way here. You've got to be willing to plant the seed and then nurture its growth. What would happen if you went to the soil and said, give me some fruit, give me some plants? The soil would probably respond, excuse me, sir, but you're a little confused. You must be new here. That's not the way the game is played. Then it would explain that you plant the seed, you take care of it, you water it and till the soil, you fertilize it, you protect it and nurture it. Then if you do it well, you will get your plant or your fruit sometime later. You could ask of the soil forever, but it wouldn't change things. You have to keep giving, keep nurturing for the soil to bear fruit, and life's exactly the same way. You can make a lot of money, you can lord over kingdoms or run huge businesses or control vast terrain, but if you're just doing for yourself, you're not really a success. You don't really have power, you don't have real wealth. If you make it to the top of the success mountain by yourself, you'll probably jump off. You want to know the biggest illusion about success? That it's like a pinnacle to be climbed, a thing to be possessed, or a static result to be achieved. If you want to succeed, if you want to achieve all your outcomes, if you have to think of success as a process, a way of life, a habit of mind, a strategy for life, that's what this chapter has been about. You must know that what you have, and you must know the perils in your own. You must have the ability to use your power in a responsible and loving way if you are experiencing true wealth and happiness. If you can handle these 5 things, you'll be able to use all the skills and powers taught in this book to do wondrous things. Now let's take a look at how change works on a larger level. Anthony Robbins, The Power of Success.